Hey everyone, thanks for joining this webinar. So my name is, just to introduce myself, my name is Ricky. I work at Sharesight as the customer support team managers. So we're just gonna walk you through, introduce you what Sharesight is about and how Sharesight and Tigers work together and how you can use Sharesight for end of financial year just to prepare your tax returns and some of the reports that you can use on Sharesight. So I guess before I jump into the webinars, just a quick disclaimer. So this webinar is just for informational purposes only. So it doesn't constitute any personal or financial advice. And again, if you have any, always talk to your advisors or any accountants for any correct advice to your situations. So we'll just jump in. So a couple of things that we're going to cover today. So the first one is just a quick run through about how Tiger and Sharesight work together. So, the APIs and how to sync your trades from Tigers into Sharesight. And we're going to talk about the tax reports in Sharesight. And after that, we'll talk about a couple of things on tax plannings, about things that you can do before you file your tax returns. And the last one would be just Q&A sessions. So if I doesn't cover anything that during the webinars and you have any questions, just kind of drop it into the Q&A sessions, and then we can kind of go through that at the end of the sessions. Right. Okay. So I'm just gonna quickly go through how Tiger and Sharesight work together. So I mean, maybe some of you guys are new to Sharesight, so you're not too sure how to kind of set up the connections. So I'm gonna walk you through about basically how to set up your portfolio in Sharesight, how to sync your transactions from Tiger into Sharesight, and just couple of things that you need to kind of check just to make sure everything is correct before you run the tax reports, because otherwise, if some of the information are not correct, then when you run the tax reports, the numbers will be incorrect, and whatever that you're gonna give it to the ATO is gonna be incorrect as well. So I'll just quickly show you. So this is Tiger website, obviously. So I'm just gonna quickly show you how to set up the connections. So so we have a API integration with Tigers. Is pretty straightforward. So if you go to my account and if you go to reports, and then there's a tax report. And this is where you kind of set up the integration with Sharesight. So, if you tick that, I agree and consent. Obviously, it depends. If you don't have any Sharesight account, you have to create one before you can link that to your Tiger. But if you already have Sharesight, you just link your Sharesight account, and obviously authorize access to your Sharesight account. I agree. Authorize. And that's it. So if you have like more than one portfolios in Sharesight, then you can kind of edit and select the portfolio that you want to sync all your transactions into. So you can select Tiger, Sharesight portfolios, and then you can select when you want to sync your trades as well. Ideally, if this is the first time that you're doing it, then you want to kind of set the date to since inceptions to sync those trades, and then you click connect, and all the trades should kind of get pushed through within, I'll say, within 30 seconds, less than a minute. So that's pretty straightforward. Just set up the connections. So a couple of things that just so you guys know how this works is Sharesight Tiger will push all your buy and sell that you did on Tiger into Sharesight. But if you have done any previous transactions with another brokers that you have transferred to Tiger, those trades will not come through. So only trades that you have done through Tiger will come through. So those trades might have to kind of manually add them. So that's one thing to know. And the second thing is once you've imported all your trades, so I'll just use this as an example. I think once you've synced all your trade, it's always good to kind of quickly check to make sure the quantity are correct. So, just kind of run this through with your Tiger account just to make sure, the quantity is all right, 40 shares, 213 shares, everything lines up. Because there will be cases where Tiger only push your market buy and market sell to Sharesight. So if you have any sort of corporate actions, for example, like dividend reinvestments, if any of your holdings has any merger, any acquisitions, or any demerger, which kind of ends up causing any difference in the quantity change, then those things will need to be manually adjusted. So again, just make sure the quantity is correct. If there's anything that is not correct, then you probably have to kind of dig a little bit deeper, whether it's like something to do with corporate actions or dividend reinvestments. If you're not too sure what you need to do, you can always reach out to our customer support team, which I'll give you an email later, or you can always send us a chat. There's always a chat here in your Sharesight account where you can send a message to us right away. So that's one thing. To make sure your quantity is all correct after you push all the trades through. And the second one is obviously your dividends. So when Tiger push all your buy and sell into Sharesight will look at all the buy and sell transactions that you did, and Sharesight would populate all the dividends. So that's something that you need to check to make sure the dividends are actually the same as what you actually receive. So, for example, if you go into the holding page, so in this case, I'll use BHP as examples. If you go to trades and income, there should be, you can see all the transactions that Tiger push in, and you can also see all the dividends that Sharesight would kind of push in for you based on your buy and sell transactions. So it kind of makes sense that you want to check all these dividends just to make sure that they kind of match what is in Tiger or in what you receive in your bank account. So one thing I guess kind of more sort of like relevant for most of the Tiger customers is, I guess most of you guys invest in US stocks. So one thing that you probably have to check is the withholding tax. So I guess you guys know when you invest in US stocks, if you do fill out the W8BN forms, your withholding tax is going to be 15%. So under the edit holding settings, there's a foreign withholding tax percentage. So that is default to 15%. So Sharesight would always assume that you have completed the form and therefore your dividend is going to be taxed at 15%. But there will be cases where, if you forget to fill up the forms or whatnot, then it's not going to be 15%. It's more likely going to be 30%. So again, this is just something for you to be aware of because, you don't want to submit the wrong dividend information to the ATO. And in some cases, it might not be 15 or 30%. So for example, like myself, I invest in shares in Ferrari, which is listed in the US. And Ferrari has a totally different withholding tax, something like 40-something%. So again, just something to check. But I would say in most cases, if your US stocks are based in US, it's most likely going to be 15 or 30%. But again, just to be sure, make sure you check it on your dividend statements. So that's basically covered all the things. So the next one I'm just going to go through is the tax reports. So there's two tax reports in Sharesight. One is the capital gain tax report, and the other one is the taxable income report. So I'll go through the CGT report first. So you can find the CGT report under reports, and then if you scroll all the way down here, there's a tax and compliance sections. There's a CGT report here, and the taxable income report is just next to it. So if I go in here, okay, so once you sync all your Tiger, all the trades from Tiger into Sharesight, obviously all the buys and any sell, if you have sell, it will all appear on this CGT report. If you don't have any sell trades, then this report will be empty, right? So I'm just going to briefly explain how to, I guess, basically read this report. So I'll set it to, the current financial year. So, this is what you need to do your current financial year tax return. So Sharesight would look at, when you bought the shares and when you sell the shares. So, you can see the columns here. There's the code, there's a ticker code, there's a sales allocation methods. There's a purchase date. So this is when you actually acquired or bought the shares, and the gain date, which is when you sell the shares. And how many shares that you sold, what was the cost base, your sell value, and Sharesight will calculate whether it's a capital gains or, capital gains, whether it's a short-term gain. So again, you're kind of comparing the purchase date and the sale date. If it's less than 365 days, they'll be classified as a short-term gains. If it's more than 365 days, it'll be a long-term gains, or it is a capital losses. So, I guess pretty straightforward. And down here, this is where Sharesight would perform the calculations. So it will look at your short-term gains. So in this very simple portfolio examples, the short-term gains is $2,740. So this is what you see, minus the capital losses to be offset. So in this case, our capital losses is about $3,155. So it's gonna max that amount out to basically to match the short-term gains. And then the remaining will kind of fall to below, which is at the $450. And that will kind of deduct from the long-term gains. So that will come to about $4,785. And the last thing is to apply the CGT concessions of 50%. So, if it's a long-term gain, you get a 50% concessions, but not for short-term gains. And that is how Sharesight will calculate your capital gains from, based on all your buy and sell. So I'll say it's pretty straightforward. I guess one thing sort of worth mentioning is there's a sales allocation method. So sales allocation methods is basically how Sharesight will decide if you have multiple buy and sell trades, and if the selling is not full selling but partial selling, then you would actually, this would determine how Sharesight would pick which parcels to sell. So in this case, the default is always first in, first out. So first in, first out means, if you sell, it's gonna take it from the first buy, and once that is all used up, he will pick the second one and the third one and so forth. There's many other sales allocation methods that you can use here, FIFO, LIFO, maximize gain, minimize gain, minimize CGT. So this is relevant if you have like multiple buy trades and partial selling. So I would recommend, just, it's good to kind of play around, see how that changes your capital gains. So that's one thing that you can do. Another thing that is the losses carried forward. So losses carried forward, again, just quickly explain, is if in the previous financial year, or doesn't have to be previous financial year, but all other financial years, if you have any losses, you can actually carry them forward to kind of offset your capital gains. So let's say, I'll just give you examples. If I run the CGT report for the last financial year, so again, you can see here, my last financial years has a claimable loss of about $2,272.81. So what I can do is I can carry that losses forward. So if I run the current financial year CGT report again, and then under advanced options, I can apply that loss. So if I apply that, So that losses will be added to my current financial year capital losses, so bringing the total losses to about $5,427. And that will also be reflected down here as well, reducing our capital gains from about 2,000 to about $1,256. So that's something, if you have any capital losses from previous financial year, you can put it in here, and the report would include that into the calculations to derive your capital gains. So yeah, so that's a nutshell in the CGT report. For the taxable income report, so taxable income reports is here. Okay, so the taxable income report, so this report contains all the dividends or distributions or income from your holdings. And this reports is sort of like separated into a couple of sections. So it is separate into local income, so all the dividends that you get from shares that you invest that is listed in ASX, and as well as foreign income. So if you invest in US shares, all the dividends would come through here. As for the local income, it is kind of divided into non-trust income and trust income. But I wouldn't, you don't really need to worry too much about what is trust and non-trust basically. But I mean, to simplify, trust incomes are ones that tend to be like ETF. So if you invest in ETF like VAS or IVV, those are trust income. But other than that, you don't really need to worry about when it comes to filing your tax return. So yeah, so all the dividends are kind of there's a breakdowns into their components, because I think when you file your tax return, you would need these the figures for some of the things like franking credits and franked amount, unfranked amount. So all of these are kind of broken down into like columns. And then you got the subtotals, and these are just the paid dates. So for foreign income, again, if you own like US shares, all of these numbers are converted into AUD, because you need to, because when you file your tax return, you're gonna report those dividends in AUD dollar, not in US dollar. So there's an exchange rate here that is automatically applied. So it would change those, and then you got the foreign withholding tax, the one I mentioned just now. And right down here, there's a sort of an income tax return form that sort of makes it easy when you want to file your tax return. You just need to sort of like follow the labels. Unfranked amount 11S, and that's how much it is. And then you just need to put it when you file your own tax return. You just need to put those in based on the labels. So everything just kind of organize it for you. I guess for people that has ETF, so I'm just gonna quickly go through this. When you own ETF like VAS or IVV, you will receive an annual tax statements at the end of the financial year. So I believe will be sometime in July. So you will receive an annual tax statements from your share registry. Now, when it comes to doing your tax return, you can follow your annual tax statements to fill in the tax statements components in here. So there's a give me a second. So there's a button right down here, and enter annual tax statement components. So you can open this, and then this is again based on the labels 13U, 13C, which is on the statements. You can kind of enter this amount in there. If you're not too sure how to do it, you can go to help.sharesight.com. We have quite a lot of help page there, but if you search for AMIT, there's a video of me just kind of showing you how to do that for the annual tax statements, how to kind of fill that in. But this is for last financial year, but it is the same as the current financial year, because the tax statements format is it's pretty much the same every year. So you can use that. But we will do one for this financial year as well. So that is one options. When you get your annual tax statements, you can fill up the information here, and then once you fill that up, you can do your tax return. Another options is you can wait. So we get the annual tax statement components information somewhere around mid to the end of September. So once we get that, we will kind of populate that into your portfolios, into your holdings. So we'll basically adjust all these numbers to kind of match your annual tax statements. So basically it's two ways. If you want to do your tax return before, I mean, if you have ETF, if you want to do your tax return before September, you can do that. Once you get the statements, you can put it in yourself and do your return right away. Otherwise, if you're not in a rush, you can wait until after September, like somewhere in October. Once we push in those components information, then you don't have to do it yourself. So there's basically two options for you to do it, whichever is easier for you. So yeah, so I think I guess that kind of sums up the taxable income reports. And I guess the next one I'm just going to walk through is something sort of like a tax planning tool, something that you can use that might help you if it applies to your situations. So one thing is, tax loss selling. So tax loss selling, long story short, is if you have any shares or investments that are sitting on a loss, you can consider selling them to reduce your capital gains, put it simply. Again, so in Sharesight, there's a report called the unrealized tax loss selling. Then I guess the few key things that you probably have to ask yourself is, do I have a massive capital gains, or am I about to have a massive capital gain? Maybe you're gonna sell something for the next 1 week that is gonna end up with a massive capital gains. So that's the first question. The second question is obviously, do you have any shares that is sitting at a loss right now? And are you selling it because for tax, or is it because you don't believe in the long-term potential of the shares or whatnot? So again, just something for you to kind of think about and decide. So that's something kind of hopefully that will help. I guess the next thing is obviously if you do your own tax return, you can use the numbers in there. If you do it through accountant, there's a couple options. So if I go back to the CGT report, so there's a couple options here. Basically, you can download, you can export the reports into a PDF or as a spreadsheet. So that's one option. You can export that and then share it with your accountants. Another option is you can share your portfolios. So if you go to settings, there's a sharing over here. And then you can put in your accountant's email address and then share your portfolio. He or she will receive an email of the invite, and then your accountant will set up an account. And then once he or she has a Sharesight account, they will be able to access your portfolio and grab whatever information they need to do your tax return. So yeah, so I think that's it. Some of the key dates here. Again, I guess some of you probably already know 30th of June is the end of financial year. 12th of September, again, that is not exact, but just roughly there, somewhere mid or the end of September is when we're gonna receive the MIT adjustments for the ETF. And then that's when we're gonna update the tax components for those ETFs. And 31st October is the tax filing deadline for individuals. And I guess the last one, just to cover off, is how we work with Tiger is there's a $99 yearly plan. So basically that plans give you the unlimited holdings and access to all the tax reports that I mentioned just now, the capital gain tax reports and the taxable income reports. And then obviously the API means all the trades are automatically synced to Sharesight. And then there's a couple other features as well. But we do support, I mean, I think any markets that Tiger allows you to trade, we support those markets as well. Dividends is going to be automatic, so so you don't need to manually enter those. And then if you want to track other things like property or some other private investments, you can always do so as well. And then there's like benchmarking and cash accounts functions and features as well. So yeah, so that's $99 yearly plan. So I think that's kind of wrap up my webinar. So we'll move to Q&A. Hang on, I'll just have a look at what questions comes in. Okay, so can my accountant access this information? Yes, so I mentioned just now. So your accountant can access this information if you you can export the PDF or as a spreadsheet and then send it to your email it to your accountants, or you can share your portfolio, whichever is easier for your accountants. Hang on, let me look. Is there any possibilities? Okay, this is another question. Is there any way I can get tax statements for US options? Right now, Sharesight doesn't quite support US options. I mean, in fact, we don't support options, whether it's US or Australia. So yeah, there's no way to do that, unfortunately. Let me see if there's any. Is there any other questions? Put it in, let me know. If we Okay, so there's a question about exchange rate for the US. Yes, you're correct. So you're right. So I mean, I use Tiger myself. So obviously when you deposit your money into Tiger, most likely it's going to be like Australian dollar, and then you have to convert it into US dollars, and that exchange rate will be different from what Sharesight uses. So just to kind of give you an idea, I'll just explain that. So use Amazon as examples. When you when you connect Tiger to Sharesight, the exchange rate here is not based on Tiger or anything, because the API basically just give us the quantity and the price that you trade, and obviously the value, everything is going to match up. But the exchange rate here is applied by Sharesight. So we use our own data provider for this exchange rate. So it's definitely going to be slightly different. Maybe you might say probably more than slightly different. Depends on what are the exchange rate when you convert your Australian dollar to US dollars. So it's going to be somewhat different. Obviously you can say maybe one option is you can manually change your exchange rate, but generally I would say most of the cases, most of our Tiger customers just use our exchange rate. So one thing just to kind of point out is ATO doesn't say anything about you must use your exchange, the true exchange rate, as in the exchange rate that you use when you convert from AUD to US dollar. So ATO doesn't really specify that. So again, it really comes down to preference. But I think it's going to be very, very tedious if you decide to kind of manually adjust your own exchange rate, because we have a lot of customers that use Sharesight exchange rate, and then that works fine. So and then ATO doesn't say that you can't use other exchange rate other than the rate that you actually convert your amount from AUD to US dollar. So so that's something to know. Wait, hang on. where do you pay the, okay, so this is a question about the $99 yearly plan. Where do you pay the $99? So once you sign up the Sharesight account, you go to plans and billings. So you go to plans and billings, and then there's a current plan here. Obviously you'll be on the free plan, and you can click change plan, and then right up here there should be a Tiger plan right here that says about $99. So you just need to click upgrade to that Tiger plan, and then put in your credit card. There'll be a free 7 days trial. If you're not happy with whatever, 7 days trial, you can always downgrade. You're not going to be charged. But if you're happy to continue using it, then yeah, after 7 days, we'll bill it to your credit card, and that will be like $99 a year going forward. All right. So the next one. Okay, so can you use Sharesight for free? Yes, you can use Sharesight for free as a Tiger. So it's not like you're forced to have to pay for the $99. You can use the free one. Of course, the free one has a bit more limited functions. So for one, in terms of tax report, is when you're on the free one, you only have access to the taxable income report, not the CGT report. So the CGT report is on the paid plan. And then there are other kind of functions. There's a limitation of 10 holdings as well on the free one. But if you have a small portfolio, less than 10, you can use Sharesight. So you can still use Sharesight if you want for free. All right, let's see. Is it possible to share the slides? Yes, I can share with you the slides that I just went through just now. I'll send it to the Tiger Client Services team, and then they would send it to all of you guys if you want. Let me see. Okay, so again, I guess another question's a bit going back to currency gains again. So yes, you're right. So I mean, it really comes down to, again, it comes down to your preference, whether you like how. Sorry, the question is about like how does the depends on what kind of exchange rate that you use. Your currency gains can be quite substantial. So you're right. I mean, so it depends on the fluctuation between AUD and US dollars. The currency gain is gonna be quite big of a difference, because depends on when you convert your AUD to US dollars, right? So again, like I think kind of go back to my answer previously, is you have the options to change your exchange rate to actually match the actual conversion rate on Tiger. But the problem is that's going to be very, very tedious, especially when you have done like multiple transfer. So if you only done like one transfer from AUD to USD, that's sort of fine. But if you transfer like 5,000, 10,000, and then you did it, and then you've done it for like 10, 15 times, it becomes almost impossible to track like what exchange rate are you actually should be using, kind of thing. So my recommendation is sort of like still use what is on Sharesight, even though yeah, you're right that there's a possibility that the currency gain or losses can be very high. Based on what I read on the ATO, my understanding is that you don't have to use Sharesight. You can use Tigers, or you can go to the ATO website and use RBA's rate. So I think ATO publish the RBA rate as well. But one thing that ATO does want you to follow is when you use a rate, you cannot pick and choose. So for example, I can pick which, from this source that favors me, and then I pick it from other source. So if you're gonna use one exchange rate you have to use it from the same source for all your exchange rate. You can't pick and choose for these holdings. Okay, I'm pick this I'm gonna use Sharesight for that holdings. I'm gonna use from Tiger or some other sources. So that's one thing that ATO kind of specified. Is the September report free? September report. I believe you're talking about the ETF, the ETF AMIT stuff. That one is free. So we're gonna, once we get the AMIT adjustments information, we're gonna push it into all the portfolios, whether it is free or paid. So it's gonna be the same for everyone. So if you have ETF, we're gonna push it in. But of course, if you have entered the information yourself, then once you confirm those dividends, we wouldn't do that. But if you just leave it as it is, and then come September, we'll just kind of push it into your portfolios. Let me see if there any others. Any other questions? Let me see. Okay, so a question about you do not see the $99 a year offer. Probably try connect to your sync up the connection again. You should be able to see the $99 in the plans page. But yeah, if you can't see it, probably just send us a message and then we can look it up. So you should be able to see like a Tiger here, $99 a year up here. Yeah, but because so normally this will show up once you connect your Tiger to Sharesight. But if you don't, probably send us a message. Okay, going back to the currency questions again. So there's another question about, is it true that Sharesight change the currency every time you make a buy and sell, and not the one-time exchange as it appears in the account? That is correct. That is right. So every time there's a buy and a sell, Sharesight will look at what is the exchange rate on the day of the trade. So, for example, let's say if I'm going to put a buy here, just some examples, right? Today's the exchange rate is about 0.65 based on our data. So, if you kind of do something else, it's going to be different again, 0.649. So you're right. So based on the buy and sell date, the exchange rate is going to change. Therefore, it's going to be different from what is in Tiger. In Tiger, you might, just do one conversion of say 0.7 from AUD to US dollar. But in Sharesight, it's going to be different every time based on the date of the day's exchange rate. But like I said, again, it kind of goes back to, it's going to be very, very tricky how we're going to do it, because I mean, like I said, if you're going to just exchange once from AUD to US dollar at 0.7, technically you can do it every time, just put in 0.7. But it's going to get to the point where if you do the conversion like multiple times, what kind of rate should you be using? So that's the tricky part, right? So but I do understand that, if you would prefer using the real conversion rate, because that is the actual amount. But in saying that, we do have a lot of customers just use our exchange rate, and there's no kind of tax issues in regards to that. But I can say, yeah, you're right. There's gonna be cases where your currency gains is gonna be like way more between using Sharesight's one versus your actual conversion rate. So that's something to know. All right. I think that's all the questions that we have. So I'll wrap up this webinar. But again, if you have any any specific questions to your portfolios or anything like that, just send us a message. Send us a message, send us a chat here, or you can send us an email at support@sharesight.com. So hopefully you find this webinar helpful. If you have any questions, let us know. So, yep, see you guys. Thanks, everyone.